Alright, so I am back here with the next chapter in the Quinta Silmarillion, and this is about the story of Turin Turambar. Now, this is basically just, here in the Silmarillion, we're getting basically a summary of the story, or a shortened version of the story. It is expanded in the Children of Turin, some project that Tolkien worked on. He was going to do that with a few other stories as well, but never was able to get around to it. And he was so preoccupied with so much in his last years with trying to get the Silmarillion published, and he was getting older, so he wasn't able to write as much as he could. He was having issues, and that tends to happen when you get older, right? But we get it's the same story. Now, originally, this was in the Book of Lost Tales, where it was called Turambar and the Full Loki. There were some elements of the story that were not there yet, that would come when he wrote the Lay of the Children of Turin, which is basically a long narrative poem. Well, of course, we have the prose version of the story, as I had already mentioned, and he had got the idea for this story from reading the Kalevala, which is the epic mythology of Finland. A bunch of their folk songs or whatever were put together by this man named, I'm probably going to butcher the name, I'm not good with these, but Elias Lunrot, however you say it. Again, I don't really speak Finnish, so I don't know. So sorry if I have butchered that to anyone on here that watches this and does speak Finnish. But there was the story of the hero Kullervo, and he tried to write his own version of the story, and out of that came this. And that was written, 1916 to 17, right about the time he wrote Fall of Gondolin, to Nuviel. But of course, there were no Silmarils at this point. But here in the published Silmarillion, obviously, there is. That's how it got its name. But anyway, this is a very tragic story, and one of Tolkien's darkest, I would say, and has some very adult themes in here. So yeah, not suitable for children. And he even said in his essay on fairy stories that fantasy is more suited for the adult mind than for that of the child. But anyway, so the just to do a quick overview of the story here. Hurin, went off to war in the Battle of Unnumbered Tears and was taken by Morgoth and set on one of the peaks of Thangorodrim. He was set up there to watch what Morgoth was going to do to his children and to his entire family. And, of course, the Easterlings, who had betrayed the elves and the men of the West at this time, they were sent to live in the lands that Hurin had once ruled over. Now, prior to his death and him going away, they had Turin, who was the oldest. They had a daughter, Lilith, and when she was just but a little child, she died. And that was the first grief that befalls Turin in this story. And there's more details in the Children of Hurin about this, but so Morin doesn't want her son to become a slave, because that's what the Easterlings would do and were doing. And so she sent him to go live with King Thingol. Thingol's heart, of course, now has been softened towards man because of the whole thing with Beren, which is now past. So he grows up there, but his mother was pregnant with his new sister, but he never gets to meet her because she's not Morin doesn't give birth to her until after Turin's gone. And he grows up not knowing her. She grows up not knowing him. He one day gets into a fight that is with this elf that lives there named Cyros, who, of course, he's the one that initiates it, not Turin. And obviously Turin, he's been fighting along the northern borders of Doriath because the orcs have been loosed upon them, and of course he's got the Girdle Melian, which protects Doriath, so they can't actually get in there. But anyway, he is insulted by this elf, and gives chase, and the elf accidentally dies. Something that Turin was not trying to kill him, but he thinks he's an outlaw, so he flees, and he goes and has a band of outlaws that he gets together, and of course they meet this petty dwarf named Meme, and they get a new hideout, and he betrays them, of course. You have Beleg, who was an elf that Turin had served with, and he went to go look for Turin, and to tell him, hey, the king isn't mad at you. He knows now that what happened, and he knows that it was an accident, and that this elf was the initiator of the whole thing. You're pardoned, but he's like, hey, I'm not going back. Turin's not going to go back. But anyway, he betrays them to the orcs, and all of his men are killed. He's captured. Beleg goes to look for him, and he meets this other elf that had been captive in Thangarod and Angband. Turin kills Beleg, thinking that he's an orc. This is Beleg. Well, back up. Beleg rescues him, but it's at night, and he's been tortured by the orcs, and so he's thinking that Beleg's an orc trying to kill him or whatever. So he kills Beleg, and then lightning strikes, and he's like, "Oh crap!" He realizes what he did. He goes with this elf, Greendor, that he meets, that helped Beleg track Turin and the orcs down, and he goes to Nargothrond. Glowering the Dragon comes, destroys it. But, to make a long story short here, Morin and Nienor eventually go to Doriath. When they hear about Nargothrond falling, they hear that Turin was there. They go to search for him. They become lost. Nienor's put under a spell by the dragon, and she runs and comes to Turin, who's living in the forest of Brethel. They don't know their brother and sister. They get married. Yeah. Now, in the original tale, she ends up getting pregnant. So, yeah, this is a little dark story. And with most of his stories, the main theme, I would say, is death. As basically, that's the main theme of the Lord of the Rings, too. It's death. And you definitely see a lot of death in here. The dragon comes. Turin fights the dragon, wounds him, gives him a mortal wound. Nienor goes to look for him. Dragon, before he dies, says, "Oh yeah, you found your brother finally." So she's disgusted and she kills herself. She leaps off a cliff to her death. Now there was this man that had been in love with her named Brandir, and he went to follow her when she went to go find Turin. Overheard and saw all this, and he tells the people, and because Turin, he's passed out at this point because some venom gets on him, and he goes into a swoon and he passes out. And she thinks he's dead. Of course, like I said, she kills herself when she finds out that's her brother. And so Turin comes back as Brandir is telling the people what happened, and he tells Turin, and Turin's like, "You're a liar. You just made that up." Well, Mablung, the elf, comes along. He's also from Doriath. And he tells Turin, "Oh yeah, your sister and mother had been to Doriath." So Turin realizes, oh well, this guy Brandir was right, and he killed Brandir after he overheard what he was saying, and so Turin kills himself in the end, and he's buried by Mablung and the elves. So yeah, very, very tragic story. It is one of my favorites out of the Silmarillion, out of everything that he wrote. Lord of the Rings will always be my favorite book, of course. Now, the way in which he kills the dragon in this story, I don't know how to describe it exactly. I might just bring it out and read the little section, because Tolkien did borrow this from another mythological source. Let's see if I can find it here. And the way in which he kills the dragon. Where is this? I guess in this story she does conceive. I must have overlooked that when I was reading it. So yeah, she was pregnant with their child. That's gross, I know. They're brother and sister, but they didn't know they're under a spell. So they can kind of be excused, but yeah, that is disgusting. Would they have not, they probably would have found out even if the dragon hadn't come at this point, when the baby came out and it was all deformed and stuff, because, I mean, that's what happens when, it's why you don't do it. I think that's why God tells us not to marry someone that's in your nuclear family, because that's just sick, and that's what will be the result of it. But anyway, yeah. The dragon lay at Cabot in Arras, where the river ran in a deep and narrow gorge that a hunted deer might overleap, and Turambar thought that he would seek no further, but would attempt to pass over the gorge. Therefore he proposed to creep down at dusk, and descend into the ravine under night, and cross over the wild water, and then to climb up the further cliff, and so come to the dragon beneath his guard. So he's going to be below the dragon's not going to see him there, and he's going to take his sword. And this Tolkien pulled from Norse mythology in the story of Sigurd and Fafnir the dragon. And of course you also have the story of Oedipus, which is similar to Clorvo and to what's going on here, because remember in the story of Oedipus, he married his mother, not knowing that it was his mother. And I think Clorvo married his sister, just like Turin does here, I believe, if I remember correctly. Having not read the Kalevala, I don't remember, but I know what I've read Tolkien's version of the story of Clorvo, but I can't really remember. But and again, it's a very dark and a very tragic story. And I do suggest you pick up a copy of The Children of Hurin to get the full, complete story, because it is good. It's really great. But yeah, this is probably going to be a long video, but it's a big story. And so, anyway, that is all for now. Try to get some more of this read, and hopefully next week I can try to finish this and finish these videos here before I move on. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will be back later. See ya.